excellent, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
We did excellent. That's cool too. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. Anyway, without further ado, David Hayter.
Hey, kept you waiting, huh? Does everybody have enough room? Yeah. That's a joke, there's nobody here. Well, it's so nice to see you, and so nice to have such an intimate gathering, and thank you all so much for coming. It's very fun to be here in Florida. I doubt I even need this. So, what do we do? Alright, what are we doing? What the hell?
Tell us about yourself.
Myself. What about me? So, God, I was born in California. My parents are Canadian. My whole family's Canadian. I moved around North America all my life, and when I was 16, we moved to Japan, and I went to high school in Kobe. Oh, I didn't know we had somebody signing. That's delightful. Thank you for being here. Are you able to make it a little more gravelly? She did it. So I moved to Japan, where I started doing voices for video games in 1985, like for the first arcade games, because I was in Japan and they needed people who spoke English. And then I was not a great model, and I did voice language tapes when I was 19. I went to theater school in Toronto. I did that for a year, and then I said, to hell with you people, I'm going to Hollywood. And so that's what I did. And then the rest is history.
Alright, that's definitely a swipe right for me.
I appreciate that.
I mean, we can always just start out with just taking questions from the audience.
Yeah, because I do a bunch of strange, various things. I usually just ask the audience to come up and ask me whatever you want. So, both of these mics working, so if you want to come up and anybody wants to come up, just line up on the mic and I'll tell you whatever I can.
Well, he's...
Alright, we'll start off with...
There you go. Sir, you look amazing.
Thank you.
What is your character?
Zuko from Avatar: Last Airbender.
Oh, I love Avatar: Last Airbender. That show's so awesome. And I'm friends with Azula.
Oh, really?
Well, as close as you can get to it. Without getting killed, but yeah, Gray DeLille is a good friend of mine.
I was just wondering what it's like to work with Hideo Kojima.
I am also wondering that. I get that question a lot. What is it like to work with Hideo Kojima? I really don't know. I mean, he does his work on the Japanese games in Japan. And when we record in English, it happens in Los Angeles with Chris Zimmerman directing the English voice cast. And typically the games are pretty much done by the time they get around to our portion. So I never really worked with him. He came to visit a few times, and he came to show me demos of the game that we were working on. And he was always perfectly nice, but we didn't, it's not like we spent hours and hours in the booth together working, so I don't really know. Sir?
Actually, yeah, his question kind of led up to what I was going to ask, because I've heard from a lot of different voice actors who do television and film, and they talk about the experience of working with nothing more than a script and a vocal director, maybe. Mm-hmm. They don't have any idea what the finished product looks like, and sometimes they don't even know what they're working on, they're just reading lines.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had the ability to see the finished product. Have you ever, in addition to that, have you ever worked on any other type of voice acting where you didn't have that? And what was the correlation between the two? What was the experiences, I guess, comparison between the two? Was it better or worse? Did it make the job easier or harder?
Yeah, so, you know, what he's talking about is sometimes on the first Metal Gear, I got to see the game and voice it to the game. and then sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you just get a piece of paper and you have to pretend you don't even have the other actors in the room with you. So, I mean, the bottom line is where'd you go? There you go. The bottom line is it's better for the scene if you have somebody sitting next to you and you're reacting and you can, and it's better if you can see the character because you can see if they move and need to put movement into the voice. If he's getting up like this or whatever, you can put that into the voice. Yeah, it's hard when it's just lines on a page, and so I do the lead Jedi voice in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that is just line after line after line of random dialogue, and you have to kind of, they tell you what the line before was and the line afterward, so you get a little context, but you really have to keep it, alive, but at the same time you have to keep it neutral enough that it works in a number of different situations. So it's not as good for performance, but ideally, if you do it well, the audience doesn't notice the difference. Sure. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
That is not my question, by the way.
Next.
Welcome to Florida. I hope you're enjoying your time here.
I am. It's been a lovely 12 hours
That's awesome.
of humidity and thunderstorms.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like a two-part question.
Yeah, sure.
Did you play any of the games? Did you play all of the games?
I played all the games
All the Metal Gear
that I'm
games?
in.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I don't play games that I'm not in. No, that's not true. I just don't play games where I'm not Snake.
Okay, and then out of those Metal Gear games, what was your favorite one? Either voice acting or playing or both?
My favorite one, I think, is Snake Eater, the third Metal Gear. I think that one is just a crowning achievement. But I love them all. They all have their own game mechanics. They all have their own brilliance, their own worlds. And then voicing them, they were all really, really fun to voice. Metal Gear 4 was a little difficult because he was old, and I tried to make it sound like he was falling apart as the game went on. So by the end, he was really suffering. And so that one was a little tough, but the game turned out incredibly well.
That was my first one I played, and I was really confused.
Oh, bet.
Thank you so much for answering my question.
Of course.
Sir. So I actually have two questions. The first being, were there any lines when you were getting them handed to you or recording that you just said, nah, and ad-libbed something instead?
Well, there were a number of lines where I said, what the hell? I don't understand what I'm talking about. But we weren't really allowed to change any of the lines. Like if you wanted, there were a few times when I suggested changes, but when I did that, they had to contact Tokyo, they had to get approvals from producers, like it just wasn't really worth it. So, after a while, Metal Gear dialogue is just Metal Gear dialogue. You just throw yourself into it and, you're like, virtuous mission, like that sort of thing. And whether you know what you're talking about or not, you just gotta say it with confidence.
All right, and the second question I had was, were there any voice actors that you have worked with previously or haven't yet that you would just love to do something on?
Yeah, well, I've gotten to, there are a number of them. So I've gotten to be friends with Nolan North, who is just a riot and an incredible talent, and Troy Baker, and so I've never really worked with those guys because we're all sort of leading men guys, but I'd love to do something with them. I don't know if I've worked with Grey DeLille or just been friends with her. I mean, she's in Star Wars: The Old Republic, but I've never been like in the booth working with her, and she's an incredible talent. I've worked with Jennifer Hale many times, and that's pretty cool. In 1995, I was Captain America on the Spider-Man show, and she was Black Cat, and then we almost totally made out, but in the end, I backed out of it for the sake of democracy. Because I was Captain America, and it's a little stiff.
Yeah.
But no, there's plenty. There's so many amazing people. I just met Billy West like 2 weeks ago, who's Fry and Zach Brannigan, and I mean, he's just such a genius. And so, yeah, there are people that I am in awe of that I would love to work with. Many of them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Snake. How are you? You know that gives you infinite ammo.
Well, Mr. Hayter, I'm a big fan of yours. Ever since I played the first game in '98 when it came out,
Yeah.
I just fell in love with the character Snake. I mean, he's definitely my hero.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and how you gave him the voice and everything was just amazing. And every other work you've done, like Watchmen, is a really good screenplay. Good job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people here, well, I don't know if you know or not, but I'm actually, screenwriting is my primary job.
Yeah.
And voicing is like the most fun side job in the world, so
And you
thank
did
you.
you did an amazing job with it. And I was thinking, you already got asked a question about Kojima earlier.
Mhm.
What's your relationship with him right now, as it stands? I know you guys kind of, yeah.
I don't really have a relationship with him. I don't even know him. Everybody's like, do you hate Kojima? And I'm like, I don't know Kojima. I don't, you know. I really met him. I've met him 3 times, and we've smiled and taken pictures together, and that was it. So I admire him hugely as a game designer. The man is a genius, and that remains undiminished. Each game was so incredibly groundbreaking and brilliant and allowed you to foresee the future, really. I mean, they were all incredible. So I remain a big fan, but I don't really know them.
And another question, are you still in contact with Cam Clark, and are you aware of that reply video he gave you, like the Taco Bell driver?
Oh, yes. Hello, brother, did you like my sunglasses? Yes, I love Cam Clark, and he's really awesome, and I'm trying to get somebody to put all that together into one codec thing. And this is an exclusive, nobody knows this, but Roy Campbell, the Colonel, has already recorded his lines for the thing, so I want to put it on. I've just been busy.
Oh, nice.
So, thank you. Joe.
Hello.
Hey, nice to see you.
With you being a voice actor and also a writer-director for Hollywood films, how different would you say the experiences are? And like, how's the transition between the two?
How different are they? They're very, very different. Voice acting is, when you get the job, it's just pure joy. It's so much fun. You get to sit down with brilliant people. It's like doing a radio play. The engineers are doing all the work. It's just a blast. When you're directing a movie, it's like marshaling an army. It's like having 1,000 questions thrown at you every day. It taxes your knowledge of acting, directing, camera, music, color, everything, props. It's an entirely different thing. In many ways, I think directing is the most satisfying job in the world. If you can handle the pressure, it's just an all-encompassing adventure. But voicing is just a blast.
Thank you. You're the only singer.
Well, that's not true, but I appreciate the sentiment. Sir.
Yeah.
So what's the weirdest fan experience?
I'm sorry?
What's the weirdest fan experience?
The weirdest fan experience. Oh God, I don't, they all kind of blend together. The weirdest fan experience. I had 2 grown men burst into tears when I met them. I've had people from Ireland sort of trick me into saying something positive about the Irish Republican Army, which I was just like, look, I didn't want to take a stand on this at all. Please don't involve me in your decades-long conflict, or your centuries-long conflict. I've had kids ask me to sign their shoes. People bring me boxes all the time. I was in France last year, and I checked into my hotel, and when I came up, there was an envelope on top of a box that said David Hayter, and it was from the manager of the hotel. So a lot of weird crap happens to me. It's a strange existence. Boss.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
I had a question. So Metal Gear Solid 1 is like one of my most favorite games. And when you first made it, when you first did the voice act in that game, I remember, and I'm just trying to figure it out if maybe this was something that either Konami decided to do, but when you did the voice acting, your voice was natural, it came out. Was that something that you changed? Because I noticed that Snake's voice, like it has its own character to it now. In the other games, compared to the first one,
right.
It's like, it sounds great, like I loved it, and it's like, when I played Metal Gear Solid 1, I had like this idea of, okay, he's like this grunt,
right.
Billy Badass, like doing his thing.
Right.
And then when you see the Twin Snakes, Metal Gear Solid 2, Fallen games, it's like, okay, this is Solid Snake, he's got his own character, he's got his own little kind of personality. Was that something that you decided to change, or was that something that the company decided to do?
No, the way the voice was done was always up to me. Oh God. It's my bank. Sorry. So, yeah, I mean, I sort of did, I think to a certain extent, I mean, the first game, I actually auditioned with this voice, my voice, and then I read the script, and he was older than me, and he'd already been a legend, he'd already quit, he didn't want to come back, and I thought, it should be gruffer, it should be, have some more miles on it. And then I think I just got so into the snakiness of it, and Chris Zimmerman would just say to me, snakier, do it snakier. And so, it's like, I feel like I went too far along the way, and then after like the third game, I went back and played the first game again, and I'm like, oh my God, I've so drifted off of what this is, so I tried to pull it back again, but it became its own thing. But no, every variation was up to me, for better or worse.
One more question.
Yeah, sure.
And you don't have to.
No, I don't have to do anything. I'm Solid Snake.
If you were ever offered to do Solid Snake again, in another game, because obviously there's other Metal Gear variations that they have in Metal Gear Solid and Nintendo, or MSX.
Yeah.
If they ever offered you to do that, what would you do again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do Snake anytime. First of all, as I get older, I just sound like Snake anyway. It's a signature part of my lifetime. So, I'm in the new Smash Brothers, and I'm in doing a cameo as Solid Snake and Naked Snake and Bomberman. So yeah, it's like Joe Montana playing Fat Tony on The Simpsons. He was like, if Fat Tony sneezes on a show, I want to be there. And so that's how I feel about Snake.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Do you have any tips for like an aspiring voice actor?
Yeah, get out. My friend Dee Baker, who is a brilliant voice actor, has a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com, and it will tell you everything you need to know and give you the best advice, better advice than I could possibly give you to do it. So I would go to that website, look it up, and do those things. And I mean, take classes, meet casting directors, meet other actors, and just approach it with joy and perseverance and study, and you'll be awesome.
Sounds good, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Hello.
Hi, I'm a big fan of the first two X-Men movies. X2 is still my favorite X-Men movie.
Me too.
For all these years.
Nice.
And so I just was wondering, how did you get involved with those? And then especially looking back, the first film is kind of what kicked off our modern era of superhero movies. So looking back at that, like how do you feel about the movies and kind of the trend they sort of helped start?
Well, it was a weird thing. I was broke and I got a job answering the phones on the movie X-Men. And I happened to be friends with the director, and he, which is how I got the job, and he was complaining about the script and like, oh, this is terrible, it's gonna ruin my career. And I happened to have been a fan of the comic book, so I knew the characters very well. So I said, well, I suggested a scene, and he said, yeah, good, go write that for me. And it's a long, complex story, but essentially I worked on the movie doing rewrites for 13 months. I was on set the whole time, and then I ended up getting sole credit on the screenplay, and it came out, and then suddenly I was a big screenwriter. So I literally fell ass backwards into it. And the fact that it helped create the modern comic book movie is pretty amazing, because we all thought it was going to be a disaster. Like the studio, all of us, we thought nobody's gonna. I mean, the first cut of X-Men was 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and it didn't have enough action to sustain it, so we called it Woody Allen's X-Men. It was just all talk. And then, we went back into the editing room and cut it down to like 93 minutes or whatever it is, and it kind of kicked ass. But we had no idea that if it was going to work or not. Nobody did. And so it was just a lucky, for my part, it was like being hit by lightning, but, better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
I just wanted to ask if you'd sign my shoe.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Alan Moore has been noted to say that his work is impossible to translate into film.
Sure.
Could you talk about your experience adapting Watchmen, like what to include, what not to include, what to adapt?
Yeah, so after I did the X-Men movies, they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, if I'm a comic book movie writer, I want to do Watchmen. That's the greatest comic book of all time. I pitched it, I found the rights. Rights were owned by legendary producer Barry Gordon. I got in touch with him, and I said, I would like to do this as a 6-hour HBO miniseries, so I can do everything, right? And he was like, I don't know anything about TV, can you make it into a movie? And I said, I don't know. So I sat down to work to adapt the book, and essentially what I did was I copied down the book pretty much verbatim. And the script was about 177 pages, which is too long. So my next pass, I said, okay, I'm gonna cut the pirate story, unfortunately. That was the first thing to go. And then I'm gonna try to edit this down without losing anything that I absolutely love about this, and see what I get. And that draft was about 133 pages, which for a 2.5-hour movie is about right. So I felt pretty good about it. And then I did 9 years on that movie with 4 different studios, 4 different directors, and essentially my role was to protect Alan's work. It's not my work. I mean, I've structured it into a movie, but it's essentially just me trying to protect Alan Moore's brilliance. So, and along the way, some reporter gave me Alan Moore's home number. So I started calling him saying, I'm working on your masterpiece, and I just want you to, I know you don't care for Hollywood, but if you want to be involved in any way, shape, or form, please let me know. And he was so lovely, and he said, oh no, David, the book was my story, and the movie is your story, and just let me know if you've got any questions. And so, I call him now and again, and he was, like I say, he doesn't like Hollywood, but he really was very respectful of me as a writer, and his support was invaluable. So that's how it came together.
So thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
I had 2 questions.
Okay.
Over there already answered one of them.
Oh, good.
Voice acting.
Well, that'll save time.
And the second question was, what does it feel like to be born a legend?
Being born a legend. I have no idea. First of all, I was very young at the time. And thank you. I was not a legend when I was born. I was just a little greasy baby, No, I didn't. That's one of the benefits of playing a character that when they're introduced, everybody's calling them a legend. You kind of just step into that, and then everybody's like, "You're a legend." And I'm like, "No, not really. I'm just a dude." So while I appreciate the sentiment, it's not really the facts. I didn't pop out and people go, "Oh my God, look at this kid. He's amazing. He's the first kid born with a bandana." It wasn't anything like that.
Well, it's canon now, so it's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. Yes.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
There you go, good for short people. Okay, so the first Metal Gear Solid came out like 20 years ago, and a question came up that I think the sequels tried to answer. You all might have an answer, but I want to know what you think. Snake can love Bloom on a battlefield.
Can love Bloom on a battlefield. I often think about that, and I often think you'd be pretty busy. Can love Bloom on a battlefield? Sure, love can bloom anywhere, really, and I think particularly on a battlefield, feelings are fiercely intense, and there's probably a lot of secret battlefield love out there.
You said that very seriously.
I'm a serious person.
What's your
I was born a legend, Yes, sir.
What's your favorite and least favorite Metal Gear
Boss? My favorite boss fight was probably the end in Snake Eater. I just loved that whole sequence, how huge it was, how quiet it was, and it was pretty awesome. What's my least favorite? I have some least favorites, but they're played by friends of mine, so I don't like to say. There were some that I thought were weirder than others. But as I am very close to these voice actors, I would never deride them. But that's my opinion. Thank you. Sir.
So I have a question about Watchmen.
Yeah.
I know for the movie, one of the big variations between the comic book story and the movie was the way that it ends. Was there? I always felt like the need to change the ending was kind of a little strange. Is there any reason why they felt the need to change the ending in the comic book to the way it ended in the movie?
Yeah, does anybody object to vague spoilers? All right. There were a number of reasons. So, and the first one is kind of depressing, so bear with me. The first time I closed the deal for Watchmen at Universal, I signed my contract on, and this is true, September 10th, 2001. And the next day was pretty horrible, and there was this huge attack in New York, and first of all, I thought it would kill the movie. And when it didn't, I said, I can't show those images of, all the bodies in New York. All that stuff. I love the ending of the book. And it's very striking and amazing. But right then I was like, we need to do something less horrible. It was not respectful. Second, the giant squid is the ending that you're referring to, and basically the concept I don't mean to laugh. The concept is that Adrian has engineered this giant space squid that he's going to teleport into the middle of New York, and it's going to cause a big psychic damage and a bunch of physical damage, and then people are going to think they're under attack by aliens. I had already done nearly 3 hours of exposition, sort of setting up each character, setting up the world and all that stuff, to explain all the things that go into making a fake giant squid alien attack psychic story would have added another half an hour to the film. And along the way, it was actually a friend of Darren Aronofsky's who was a physicist who said, isn't the real threat in Watchmen Dr. Manhattan? And that solved so many problems for me because he's already set up, the world already is terrified of him, the security of the world relies on him, and when he kills you, at times it can be damp, but he can also just sort of disintegrate you. And I was like, that solves so many problems for me. And I thought it made sense for the story. So I have nothing but love for the full ending. And if it had been at HBO and we had 6 hours or 12 hours or whatever, I would have endeavored to do the island with the writers and the artists and the geneticists and the whole shebang. But for a movie, it just was not feasible. So that's why.
Thank you, Snake.
Thank you. Yes, young lady.
I have kind of a two-ish part question. The first is, I read somewhere that you got in a fight in Hong Kong, and I was dying to know the story if it's true. And if it's not true, could you tell the story where you got stabbed in high school?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part where I got to the story where what?
You got stabbed in high school.
Oh, stabbed in high school, yes. I don't think I got into a fight in Hong Kong. I've been in a number of fights, mostly in Toronto, some in Japan, and one in Paris. I won all of them but one, which went very poorly for me. But Hong Kong, I don't know, I guess I was feeling chill at the time. So I was in high school in Japan, and it was an international school. And I wandered into, it wasn't even my class, I wandered into this art class where they were doing wood carving with these sort of curved, sculpting tools. And I was sitting there and I was talking to, there was a girl named Lisa Cullen, and then there was another girl, I can't remember her name, she was Swedish, everybody was from different places. And I said to the Swedish girl, do you mind if I can I try the little scoopy blade thing on the wood? It looks kind of cool. And she was like, no. I was like, oh, yeah, no. So that's what I said. And then she looked away, and I picked up one of the tools, and I just went, zoop, like that, just to try it. And she turned around, she had one in her hand, and she said, don't! I went, boom, punched it into my thigh.
Oh.
Yeah, and the blade went in it was about that long, and it went that deep into my thigh. And it was so sharp that it didn't really hurt. And I was like, hey, come on, what are you doing? And then I looked down, and blood started to come up like, bloop, bloop, bloop. And it was, she hit like something serious. And I was like, oh, that looks bad. And this poor girl, 16 years old, freaks out. And she's like, oh my God! And she, practically picked me up, she got my arm like this, and she lifted me downstairs to the nurse. And the wound was deep, but it wasn't very wide. It was, like half a centimeter. And so, the nurse put a stitch in it, and then I just limped around school all day with this massive blood stain on my jeans because I thought it looked cool. So, 25 years later, I'm on Twitter, and I've never told that story, and somebody says, hey, this is like the time you got stabbed in art class in high school. And I wrote this guy back, and I was like, well, I didn't know if it was a guy or a girl. I said, who are you? Are you the stabby Swede? And it was a dude, and he said, no, I read about it in Time magazine. It's like, what? What are you talking about? And the girl sitting next to the Swedish girl, Lisa Cullen, had become a journalist for Time magazine online, and happened to tell this story, and happened to say the guy's name is David Hayter, and he ended up writing X-Men, true story. And so anyway, I reconnected with Lisa, we discussed it and laughed about it, and I sort of clarified the story for everybody. Because she sort of made it sound like I was harassing the young woman, which I was not. I just sort of, altered her artwork a little bit, which maybe that deserves a good stabbing, I don't know. In any case, that's the story of how I got stabbed in high school. Well, thank you for bringing back such a painful memory. Yes. Hello, nice to see you again.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes, you were great.
Of course. Who could forget?
So, obviously you played Snake, but you also played Tom Homey and Pursuit of Yugi, and they're like polar opposite characters.
Yeah.
So how was it going from Snake to Tampa?
So I don't know if you know the show Fushigi Yugi. It's a great animated series, and I played Tamahome, which he was like a young heartthrob, magical samurai dude. Your question was how did I approach them?
Yeah, well, how was it to go from Snake to Tampa?
Yeah, so Snake is my embodiment of badassery, you know? Like, it's my feeling that Snake is not really a person so much as he is an identity that you as a gamer step into, and you can handle anything, and you're just on top of it all. And you might get your eye shot out, you might get your arm broken, but you'll tough it out. Tamahome was the embodiment of me, my 17-year-old romantic self, you know? And he kind of talked like this, and, you know, I just tried to make him as sexy as possible, and as in love with Miyaka as he could possibly be. And I knew that would also have an impact on the audience. So it was really fun. And I think Tamahome was really closer to my personality, or certainly at the time. I think I've become more Snake as I get more and more bitter, but I'm not that bitter. But yeah, that was the difference between the two. Thank you. Sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
I have a question about your voice that you came up with for Snake. When did you find his voice? Like, how did you develop it? What process did you take? And at what point did you find it to be, yeah, this is Snake?
I found it between the time that I auditioned for the first game and the time I started recording. So they sent me the script, which at the time, the script was about yay high, pretty high, thousands of pages of stuff. And I started going through it, and then I realized he was already an experienced soldier, that he was older than me, that he'd been through a lot. And so I just sort of roughened it up in that way. So by the time I came in to record on the first day, I had a concept of what I wanted to do with it. And then halfway through the day, Chris Zimmerman played my original audition for me, and it sounded completely different. So I was like, they're all gonna fire me for, you know, because I originally sounded like myself, which kind of sounds a lot more like Ryden. You know, I sounded very young and very like I kind of talked like a cocky fighter pilot or something. And that wasn't who this guy was. You know, he had to be more grounded, and he had to be more, you know, more of a stealth guy, somebody who lays in wait for you and, you know, has patience. So that's how it came together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. You came over to England quite recently.
I did what?
You came over to England quite recently.
I did, yes, it's true.
I'm from England. I don't know if you can hear my voice.
I can tell.
You did a...
Welcome back.
What?
Yeah, it's all right, isn't it? I was just hanging out with my friend Ray Park.
Oh,
who
really?
played Darth Maul and Toad, and he was like, we gotta go to a strip club, man, and we gotta do this, and we'll get this. And I was like, what? I don't know what this is. He goes, it's the boobies, man. Like this, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
That's brilliant. You did an interview. I've got friends in the Super Nerds podcast.
Okay.
Nerds UK. I don't know if you remember interviewing with them.
Let's say
They asked you, you said that you were working on a property with John Carpenter, but you couldn't say much at the time. I was wondering if you could say any more now, or when it's still going ahead? No, still.
I can. I'm still working with John Carpenter, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But you know, any Hollywood project takes a long time to get going, and so yeah, I'm hoping that you'll find out about it soon.
Could I ask is it quite a well-known intellectual property? Is it something original? Or?
It's an adaptation of something that's not hugely well known, but in these circles it might be known. It's a cool story that the producers brought to me, and they brought me on and they brought John on, and I've been lucky enough to work with him and have him make fun of me, you know, pretty much on a daily basis, which is kind of cool. But I'm sorry, I can't.
That's all right. No, I do understand.
In fact, when I said it in England, I wasn't supposed to say it at all, and then the next day I saw it was everywhere, all over the internet. It was like, David Hayter's working with John Carpenter. And I was like, what idiot leaked this information? So I traced it back and I was like, oh, it was me. I was on a panel like this and I was just like, oh, I'm working with John Carpenter, you know, like an idiot.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Bear with me because I just came across this yesterday. There's a YouTube video from years ago. This is Sadie's gaming infection.
Yeah, I know the one.
I mean, this is gold. This is amazing. Just so everyone knows, the video I'm referencing, the whole cast gets together and it's kind of like an improv.
Yeah, so Sadie is a friend of mine. She had an internet gaming show, and you should look at this video because it's really, really funny. And it was me, Campbell, Otacon, Naomi, Ryden. Am I missing anybody? I think that's it.
I think that's it, yeah.
And we did I don't know how long it is, like 25 minutes or half an hour of us.
It's about 15 minutes.
Oh, it was about 15 minutes. It seems a lot longer. It was about 15 minutes of us improving a group therapy session for all of the characters in Metal Gear, and it's really funny, and all those actors are great. And it was just, yeah, we just sat down and made it all up on the spot. It was really, really fun.
I guess my question was, if you could share with us like the background, like how did you guys come about? Because I haven't found anything like it. It's kind of like a unique experience.
It is entirely unique. I don't know, like Christopher Randolph, who plays Otacon, he happened to be in town. Sadie called me and said, we got an idea for a skit. Do you want to do it? And I thought it was hilarious. But to bring us all together like that was just luck. We just all happened to be in Los Angeles and we went and did it. And we had no idea what we were going to do before we went in. We just did it. It was cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have time for a couple of more questions.
Well, let's do 2 more and then we'll wrap it up and then come and visit you, my friend.
Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm great.
Good.
So, like most successful video games these days, the possibility of a movie being made always comes
there's
up.
a reality of a movie.
Yeah. Would you ever consider playing Snake, or who would you like to see play Snake?
I would consider it. I'd like to see me playing Snake. I think that's unlikely because nobody's going to put me in the lead of a $200 million movie. It's just not something you would expect to have happen. But who would I like? I don't know. I saw an example of like Henry Cavill, who I think is great. I'd love Hugh Jackman to do it. When I was pitching the movie, I was pitching Hugh as Snake. There's a lot of great, he's an iconic badass, and there's a few actors that leap to mind. And so those are my thoughts. But yeah, ideally it would be me.
If it wasn't you, would you dub it over for us and put it on the internet?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
If it wasn't you playing Snake, would you dub it over for us and put it on the internet?
No. People always ask me to dub Kiefer's performance in Metal Gear 5, and I'm like, I'm not doing that.
What'd you think of Kiefer anyway?
I have no idea. I never played it. I don't consider it canon. No, I didn't play it because it's too painful. It's hard to watch somebody else play your character. But I mean, personally, I love Kiefer Sutherland. I think he's amazing. I've met him. He's a very incredible, talented guy. So I'm sure he was fine. But I feel very close to Snake. So
Yeah, he only had like 10 lines, but he did all right.
well, that was kind of my point. I was like, okay, you could replace me with Kiefer Sutherland. I kind of get that, but there's no way he's going to sit in a booth for 9 months. That's how long it took Metal Gear 4. We did it from February to October, and it was just like days and days and days and days. I was like, he's not going to do that, and then he didn't. So.
Thanks, David.
Thanks. Okay, we'll do 2 more because you both asked questions before, but okay, I'll finish with you. Yes, sir.
So if you had the opportunity being at Comic-Con to voice any particular comic character, villain, hero, from any property, from any comic, what would you have your preference do? What would you like to take a stab at artistically?
Oh, what characters would I love to play? I mean, there's a lot. Batman is my favorite character, but Kevin Conroy is my friend. So, and he is Batman. But I would love the chance to play it if he was unavailable to do it. I think all the badasses that I mean, I always loved Daredevil. I'd love to play Daredevil. I'd love to play Wolverine, and because he's Canadian and he's my spirit animal. And it'd be kind of cool to do Rorschach, you know. So, you know, there's a good group there.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
Could you just say a little bit for us?